I dumped my Steam Deck OLED for the Legion Go S SteamOS edition to see if it could actually replace it. And what I discovered actually surprised me. The Legion Go S SteamOS edition is the only officially licensed third-party handheld to use SteamOS on it. It is priced at $599 USD currently and has 16GB of LPDDR5X RAM, 512GB of storage, and an AMD Z2 Go processor. Compare this to the similarly priced model of the Steam Deck OLED, which is priced at $549 USD and has 16GB of RAM, 512GB of storage, and a custom APU designed for the Steam Deck itself. So these are very comparable devices, with the main differences being the features of each device, the shape of each device, and the performance. So is the new Legion Go S SteamOS edition a true Steam Deck successor, or is the cult classic Steam Deck OLED still worth considering? Let's find out. So what really differentiates each of these devices on a surface level, since we all know they both run SteamOS? Well, one of the biggest and most immediate differences on each device are the displays. The Legion Go S has a 1200p 120Hz IPS display with variable refresh rate, and the Steam Deck OLED has an 800p 90Hz OLED display with HDR. However, no variable refresh rate. The display on the Legion Go S is bright, colorful, and is impressive in its own right. But when it comes to my personal preference on the display, I actually like the Steam Deck's display better. Yeah, I know. You're probably thinking it's a bit absurd to prefer a lower res screen with a lower refresh rate and no VRR. But hear me out first. OLED displays, from my own experience, are just better for gaming. This is because of the inky blacks, which contrast the bright colors of the display, along with the inclusion of HDR in certain newer games. You can really appreciate this in a lot of darker games like Resident Evil 4, where highlights pop in the dark, gloomy environment. Of course, I am sacrificing variable refresh rate here, but I think the trade-offs overall, personally, are worth it. If you have a relatively newer smartphone, chances are you have been using an OLED display for quite some time, so you already know what to expect. OLED displays are also much more responsive and smoother in motion. IPS displays, on the other hand, are not necessarily bad, but they have a backlight that tends to make blacks look gray, along with some backlight bleed, which is noticeable around the edges of the display. There's also some increased latency with IPS displays. So yes, while on paper the Legion Go S's display is better than the Steam Deck OLED's, my preference aligns more with the Steam Deck OLED's inkier blacks, better response times, and brighter colors. But of course, there's more differing features than just the displays between these two handhelds. The Legion Go S has a singular touchpad, while the Steam Deck OLED has two larger haptic feedback touchpads. The Legion Go S has two programmable back buttons, and the Steam Deck OLED has four programmable back buttons. The Legion Go S has hair-lock triggers, while the Steam Deck OLED does not. The Legion Go S has RGB, and the Steam Deck OLED doesn't. Well, the Legion Go S has RGB, but you need to customize it with third-party software. Neither of them, however, have a kickstand, but the Legion Go S does come with a cardboard stand if you really need it. Personally though, I prefer using a dock with both of them. The Legion Go S, however, has a 55 watt-hour battery, and the Steam Deck OLED has a 50 watt-hour battery. And one feature that rarely ever gets used on the Steam Deck OLED but does exist is that it can detect when your thumbs are on the thumbsticks. Not sure what the purpose for this feature would be, but hey, it's something, I guess. Obviously, both devices are shaped very differently as well. The Legion Go S is thicker and has grips that are contoured backwards that really fit well in the palms of my hands. The Steam Deck OLED is a bit thinner, but also has grips that are contoured backwards that feel comfortable. The Legion Go S weighs 72.6 grams, and the Steam Deck OLED weighs 61.9 grams, so the Steam Deck OLED is a bit lighter. While comfort depends on personal preference, and both of them are very comfortable to hold, I really do enjoy the Legion Go S's shape, but the Steam Deck OLED shape is great too, and the joystick and button placement on it is great as well. So really, for ergonomics, I could go back and forth here, but I think the Steam Deck OLED edges the Legion Go S out a little bit. Now, with the speakers, I think they both sound great. However, the Steam Deck OLED sounds a bit louder and punchier to me, but I will let you decide with this little sample here of both of them running Cyberpunk 2077's main menu music. Let me know which one sounds better down in the comments. Also, while you're there, you might as well leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this. Finally, let's talk about gaming performance. The games I chose for this comparison will be running identical settings on both devices, running at 800p with either upscaling turned on or off on both devices for an optimal experience. So let's start by taking a look at the benchmark in Red Dead Redemption 2. The Steam Deck OLED averaged 41.5 FPS and the Legion Go S averaged 64.27 FPS. Now in Cyberpunk 2077, we got an average FPS of 45.94 FPS for the Steam Deck OLED and an average FPS of 64.27 FPS for the Legion Go S. And now in Dying Light 2, the Steam Deck OLED averaged 57.36 FPS and the Legion Go S got an average FPS of 61.35 FPS. Here, we see the Steam Deck actually get pretty close to the Legion Go S, surprisingly. And now finally, let's take a look at an older title, Steep, which should run well on both handhelds. In Steep, the Steam Deck OLED had an average FPS of 59 FPS, and the Legion Go S had an average FPS of 74 FPS. So clearly, we have a winner here. It's the Legion Go S. But the Steam Deck OLED did hold up well in Dying Light 2 and Steep. The biggest differences came from Red Dead 2 and Cyberpunk 2077. So if your main concern when choosing between these handhelds is performance, then I think the choice here is self-explanatory. But overall, I think that both of these devices are great. The Steam Deck still impresses despite its age. The ergonomics of the Steam Deck are great, the features are great, and the battery is still great as well. But I would be lying if I didn't think it was showing its age and performance a bit. But to be honest, it has held up well enough to support its 800p OLED display. The Legion Go S, on the other hand, has proven to be a very formidable competitor. It's much more powerful, has a higher resolution display that supports 120Hz and variable refresh rate, and also has a great contoured shape. The only issue I have with the Legion Go S SteamOS edition is that it still feels like a Windows handheld that is running SteamOS. What I mean by that is that it's not a Steam Deck 2 per se, because it doesn't have the same physical features as the Steam Deck OLED. It only has one trackpad that is honestly tiny and I never really end up using it. And the device is noticeably thicker and bigger. This isn't a deal breaker at all, however. In fact, I think at its price point, it might be the better option right now. But that doesn't change the fact that it's not a Steam Deck successor. So, if you found this video informative, leave a like and subscribe for more handheld reviews and tech-related videos. Also, you might as well hit that little bell to be the first to know when my next video comes out. This has been Killer Cam. Thanks for watching and see you in the next one. Peace.